Welcome to Zen Zestful.
My name's Kristina.
My name is Mandy.
We're going to talk about Rumi today.
Rumi.
Let's ruminate on Rumi.
Rumi.
What do you think about when you think of Rumi? And any kind of preparation aside from what you did for this episode today, which I know isn't a lot because this is
Your episode.
My episode. But like, what do you think of Rumi?
When I think of Rumi, I think of love quotes on Instagram and Facebook. I think of people really going through it when they're starting to post quotes about Rumi.
Yeah.
I know that he was a poet. He was into Sufism. He was a Sufi. And that's, I think, the extent of what I know about Rumi. And I also, I think that he was more than what people paint him out to be.
Yeah. And for me, I'll add to that, in like 2015-ish yoga Instagram era, it was just Rumi quotes everywhere as well. So yes, you have your quotes about breakups, etc., you going through a hard time. But then I remember like captions being Rumi and they're profound. Like you read them and you're like, oh, this is deep and meaningful.
I mean, captions are captions.
But captions are captions, and yeah.
Do you live by the captions that you post?
Some people do.
I make it a point to post like really sarcastic captions.
Rumi's not for you.
I mean, Rumi, I do have, I will just flat out say I'm ignorant to a lot of things about Rumi, beyond knowing that he practiced Sufism, and he really talked about God and love a lot. That is the extent to what I know about Rumi, the individual.
Yeah.
Sufism, different story. I have a lot of respect for Sufism. I don't follow it. I'm not a Sufi, but I have more knowledge about Sufism than I do about Rumi. Let's
That's fair. Yeah. I was in the same boat. Like I knew absolutely nothing about Rumi, and a couple years ago I bought The Essentials of Rumi, which is a very popular translation by Coleman Barks, and I thought, oh, I'm seeing Rumi quoted all the time. I might as well read some Rumi. So I bought this book, and I didn't even make it through 20 pages, and I felt like I was missing something, like drastic. And I thought, okay, I'm missing some sort of context, I'm missing whatever it may be, and then I thought I need to go read a book about Rumi and figure out who this guy was. And it turns out that was very hard for me to do.
read the other book or read the first book?
To try to actually find a book about Rumi that was not scholarly. And who knows, maybe it's just where I was looking or whatever. But I eventually found a really excellent 5-star book called The Gift of Rumi by Emily Jane Odell. Emily Jane Odell. And it was insane. It gave me so much context about Rumi. And then I'm like going through his poems now, I have a completely different take on them. So before we go too deep into who Rumi was as a person, I think many of us know that Rumi in the West, his poems are seen as very romantic and very sensual and loving. So I wanted to read the most romantic, passionate poem by Rumi that I could find. I'm going to read it now. And then we're going to go through our episode. And then I'm going to read it again at the end of the episode.
Okay.
Because I want to see how your thoughts shift, you and our viewers and listeners, as to the content of the poem. So, this poem is called Aroused Passion.
Aroused Passion.
As per, whatever person translated it.
Is it spicy?
I mean, it can be.
I mean, Rumi was from what year?
1207 he was born in. Yeah.
Wow. Aroused Passion.
Aroused Passion,
1207.
Been at it for decades. Not decades, millennium.
Aroused Passion.
Aroused Passion. And I'm going to try not to, now that we've been talking about this, of course, now
I'm turning red. I know you can't tell because I'm brown, but I'm turning red.
I can tell because of your smile.
Aroused Passion.
Aroused Passion. All right, let me see if I can get through this without laughing. Not because of Rumi, but because you're sitting next to me and you always make me laugh. All right. Oh, God.
Is that how it starts?
Is how it starts. I'm not going to look at you. I don't know why I thought I could get through this with you sitting next to me. You just stay there. All right. Oh God. Let stop. Stop. I'm gonna turn my back to you. I'm gonna read it like this. All right. This is the most passionate reading of a poem I've ever seen. Okay. All right. Oh God. Let all lovers be content. Give them happy endings. Again, I reiterate, I really respect Rumi and I love Rumi's poetry. Mandy, it's making me laugh. All right. I'm going to try from the top. Oh God. Let all lovers be content. Give them happy endings. Let their lives be celebrations. Let their hearts dance in the fire of your love. My sweetheart, you have aroused my passion. Your touch has filled me with desire. I am no longer separate from you. These are precious moments. I beseech you, don't let me wait. Let me merge with you. I did it. So, when one looks at that poem from a romantic context, there are many points in time there where it's very
Spicy. Yeah,
it's very spicy.
No, but I didn't think that was where it was going to go.
Okay.
Never heard this poem before. However, I like growing up with the upbringing that I had and the exposure that I had to religious scripture and my religion. I've heard and read very similar verbiage. But that being said, my religion also has a lot of Persian and at the time that it was like in the 15, 16, 17, 1800s, it was influenced by multiple cultures. Yeah. So that influence is in there. There's a lot of reference to Sufism within my religion. So I haven't heard this poem, but I get what he's talking about.
Yeah. And like coming from a white non-Sikh background, Christian background, you read this and like, that to me is not, it sounds like a romantic poem. Or had I not, done all this research.
It can be.
It can be.
I mean, I would love to find a love like this.
Yes.
I don't know where the fuck he is.
One, exactly. Your heart will dance in the fire of each other's love one day.
One day.
I look forward to that for you.
The universe works.
Indeed. We'll put it out there. So putting a pin in discussing the contents of that poem, perhaps. A little background on Rumi. So Rumi he was born in 1207, lived until 1273. So he was a Muslim scholar, jurist, mystic. He was so well respected, very well known in his time. So he actually lived in a time of great political upheaval, traveled around along the Silk Road, ended up in what is now, I believe, central Turkey. It's definitely Turkey. I think it was central Turkey. I could be wrong. And lived most of his life there. And it's really interesting because he spent a lot of time in his life around people of different religions. So Christians, Jews, other Muslims.
What's the hub in that area?
Yeah, it's the hub in that area, totally. But he also went out of his way to interact with people from different religions, which I think is just so cool. Even at his funeral, people from many different religions came to his funeral because he was such a big deal. Yeah. A big idea, I think, that influenced his connection with people of other cultures and religions is that he believed that love transcends. I can't remember if it was Rumi himself or it was in the book that I read that I was telling you about, but the idea being that different religions are like different chambers of the heart. There's all different ways of expressing faith, but they're all united in their essence of praising God. So I think that's where the idea comes from of love transcending religion.
Okay.
You look like you had something to say.
No, I agree with I think an optimal, utopian, idealistic world, that is what would be the case.
Yes, of course.
And I agree with it. I do believe that love transcends all. I think that love is the highest frequency, authenticity, love, and truth. I think they're all kind of intertwined. That is the highest frequency you can attain, and in terms of energy. So that would transcend all. It's just, how do you get to that love? Because what we think is love is often overshadowed by our egos, attachments, and our sort of shadow side that we carry as individuals. So we think it's love, but really it's control and ego. So I find that fast. I agree. I agree with what he's saying. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what Sufism is.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going to go next, actually. So Rumi was a Sufi. He's a practicing Muslim. But for those of us, I didn't know this. For those that do not know, Sufism is very different than Islam. Yeah. Sufism is mystical.
So my understanding of Sufism comes from the teachings that I had on Sikhism, because our religion was formed at a very turbulent time in Indian history. We were being invaded left, right, and center from different forces. At the time, like you had Islam, you had Sufism, and Sufism, the definition that I have of it is, so you're connecting with God through your inner personal experience and sort of this inner mysticism that you have. And the focus is on purifying your own heart through music, through chanting God's name, through dancing, as a way of expressing that love to God. And at the time when, just around the time Sikhism was created, you had, we were being invaded by the Mughals. So there was no dancing, no singing. Sufism was pretty much banned, and you could get killed for it because it was deemed to be haram. So you couldn't dance, you couldn't sing, you were, it was a very controlled space. So that act of dancing, that act of expressing, and even just saying that you're connecting to God through yourself was deemed to be like, it's forbidden. What the fuck you talking about, right? It's blasphemy. So that's my understanding of Sufism. So Qawwali music is what Sufis, like it's the harmonium and the tabla and everything. It's the way they sing, and it's devotional music to God. So Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan was a Pakistani Qawwali singer, and he's renowned all over the world. Incredible music. I think you have heard his songs, because you told me you heard this song in India.
Oh, yes. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Lo-fi version of his song. Yeah. So his music took the world by a storm, but it's because even when you're watching him perform, he's in a trance state, because people think he's singing to a woman, and it's about a human. And it could be, because it's beautiful to think that you would feel that way towards another human, but it's devotion to God. It's about the beauty of the world around you and the beauty that you see in everything. And it's about a divine love to God. Right. So that's my understanding of Sufism. I don't know what you're going to tell me, but I'm excited.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much bang on with what I have. So a quote that I have from the book I read, which I think summarizes a lot of what you've already said, actually, is Sufism being the mystical practices focused on the inner spiritual dimensions, proper moral conduct, and esoteric knowledge of Islam. So it's separate from Islam. And this whole mystical side of things, I'm sure we're going to say the word mystical a million times, and like, I don't practice Sufism, so I can't, pertain, or like, I can't say exactly what that means for somebody that practices. But like you said, it's a mystical path of love. There's sincere devotion, and the practitioner is yearning to experience the divine. And this experience comes through deep worship, meditation, dancing, love, singing. Like it's a very immersive experience. Yeah. So with all of that being said, Rumi's poetry is not what the West thinks.
It's not quotes that I can just post.
I'm so sorry to disappoint you.
I can't even think of a Rumi quote off the top of my head right now, but
there's so many.
I know there's way too many. But and they've always got this beautiful scenic background.
Totally.
Ocean waves.
Yeah.
Light white
silhouette in the distance of somebody walking.
Pastel colors.
Oh yes, or muted tones. We spent too long on Instagram. But there's a whole bunch of misconceptions, which I think we've kind of alluded to already at this point. But some main ones that I just want to bring to your attention, which I think you know from Sikhism, is in Rumi's poems, he refers to God as the beloved because God is the source of love. And Rumi, through all of his mystical practices in Sufism, he is trying to connect with God, and like it's this beautiful, deep, uninhibited worship. So it's my beloved, that's all God.
It's devotion.
It's devotion. There's some people, so I don't know if you know much about Shams of Tabriz. I don't know if I'm saying that properly. So Shams of Tabriz was Rumi's teacher. And Rumi was, obsessed is perhaps not the nicest word. Rumi was very devoted to his teacher. Okay. That's a better way of phrasing it. And through this devotion, or rather, somebody who's a Sufi is trying to connect to God. And that connection through God comes through a teacher. It's integral that you have a teacher showing you the way. And Rumi really was obsessed with his teacher, Shams. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because Shams and Rumi's relationship was looked upon unfavorably. And a lot of it, I think, was perhaps jealousy of those around him because they had this deep connection. Rumi obviously was somebody who was in a very visible position in their community. And it seems to be that there was a lot of, jealousy between this connection that him and his teacher had. Now, Shams went away for a while. Rumi was destroyed, which is probably where a lot of those poems about heartbreak come into play. Eventually, Shams just disappeared. And it's not known if Shams was murdered. It's not known what happened. And it's interesting because I think some people think, oh, Rumi was so obsessed with Shams, they were probably in a relationship, they were gay. And also to note, Rumi had a family. Rumi was married, he had a son. So there's a lot of discourse around Shams and Rumi's relationship with him and how this affected his poetry.
And even in ancient Greece, ancient Rome, you've had philosophers that had students, and then Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, all these folks had disciples underneath them that looked up to them. And the way we see teachers and gurus today is very different than back then, because today we have knowledge in our hand. Like everything you want to know and then some is in the palm of your hand. So that takes away the relationship that you would have with another human who's actually supposed to guide you, mentor you, teach you the way. You can learn the way yourself. How you interpret it is a whole different story.
Absolutely.
But you need somebody, back then you would need somebody to teach you, because not everybody could read, not everybody could write, not everybody was a scholar the way they are today. Depending on your upbringing, not everybody had the resources. So if somebody was in your town that had all this profound wisdom and knowledge, you would latch on to them to learn as much as you can if you were somebody who had this deep inner curiosity for things.
Absolutely. And love for God.
So if you have people today that are curious about, the randomest of things. So when they find their mentor for their niche, they latch on.
Yeah, of course.
Why would it be any different 1,000 years ago? And now let's say that mentor takes a liking to you because they see a gift in you to pass on their own wisdom. You're naturally going to have a relationship that would create envy and jealousy for the others who want what you have.
Exactly. Yeah, that was very beautifully put. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, there's a whole muddled bit of confusion, I would say, in terms of how people interpret Rumi saying beloved for all of those reasons.
But, okay, is it because we're looking at it through the Western lens where beloved is seen as this word that you use to the man or woman that you're about to fuck?
Yeah, I think that's one of the points of confusion.
Because beloved is in Eastern religion, beloved is what you would call the source that you're connected.
But not in the West. So I think the whole East versus West thing is 100% where so much of this gets confused. And then stack onto it, if people are, doing research on Rumi, oh, well, Rumi had a relationship with his teacher, so maybe he's actually talking about his teacher in a romantic way. It's so narrow. And do you see now why I was driven to figure out what was going on here? Because I'm reading these poems and I'm like, I knew, I had such a feeling. I'm like, I can't continue on reading these poems without figuring this out. And I'm not saying I know everything about Rumi. I definitely don't. But
beloved, you use that term. You don't use that term lightly.
No.
You would use that term to someone you are devoted to in order to feel the essence of that emotion, of what you feel when you are devoted to something. It's an all-consuming, all-encompassing feeling. It's not the same as lust. It's not the same as attachment. It's not the same as obsession or limerence or any of these crush type feelings that you have towards someone. When you are devoted to another, whether it's a person, a thing, a goal, a project, it's all encompassing.
yeah.
So you can't use that term lightly. And if you are devoted to something, that's a type of love that I don't think the average person will ever experience in their lifetime, because it takes a whole other level of self-awareness internally to know that you are devoted to this thing and you have rid yourself of all your shadows and everything that is blocking you from devoting your purpose and your path to this thing.
Absolutely.
That actually kind of ties into yoga.
Oh man, you know what? There's a whole bunch of stuff that ties into yoga.
When I talk about, your shadow self, what is our shadow self? It's your ego, your control issues, your anger, your frustrations, your need for me, and how I've been wronged and how all these things about me. You would have to get rid of all of that to focus on the one thing you are devoted to. And that would require you to detach. Which,
Yes. Put a pin in that, because I was actually, you're reading my mind here.
Okay.
Keep those thoughts close, because we will get to that, because that's a whole really large part of this. Other little misconceptions I just want to chat about before we get to bigger conversations about complete detachment and ego destruction include the following. I love how we just dive right into all the hard stuff. I love that. Okay, other little misconceptions in his poetry. Wine and intoxication is used in his poetry, but it's not referencing alcohol at all. So Rumi was Muslim. He did not drink alcohol. You're not allowed to as part of that religion, right? So everything that he is talking about is in reference to the divine, to the beloved. And that includes ideas of drunkenness. And it's that idea of he actually has a poem translated as drunken love.
is it spicy?
I haven't read it, but a lot of his imagery is about being drunk and just being so consumed by his love for the beloved that he references alcohol. And it's interesting too, actually. He, like I mentioned before, he hung out with Jews and Christians, and he would go to bars where Christians would be at, because there's no thou shalt not drink alcohol.
You guys got wine.
So anyways, he would go and interact, and a lot of people would be like, whoa, why are you going to places where there's alcohol served and stuff? But he
was like, I fuck with these dudes.
He's just like, I'm gonna talk to other people in different religions and stuff. And I just thought that was really cool. But he also obviously would have seen what it would have been like for people to be drunk.
I as you're telling me that, I'm like, it's fascinating how this has been a part of the human condition for as far as we can go back, where you're one of us. How can you go hang out with them?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be one of us. What are you doing in their camp? This notion that because you interact with someone who doesn't see or behave in the same way that you do, that there's nothing you can you can still learn from them. You can still have a relationship with someone just because they're doing different things than you're allowed to do. Yeah. But it's crazy that it goes back thousands of years where it's like, hey, you can't sit with us because
100%.
yeah.
Humans are I think that's why I bring these things up too, because I think when you humanize these people and these names and these figures, you don't understand the full picture of them or their context, and there's just so much color that these little stories and anecdotes add to, what has ended up being a very long-lasting legacy, right? Another little thing in his poetry, he refers to other mystics, other Sufis, as friends. So perhaps less salacious than the drinking and God is the beloved, but if you're reading a poem and it's talking about friends, it's more of a direct call out to other Sufis. And the last thing I'll mention is that many popular English translations leave out so much of the Islamic references, if not all of them.
Well, it wouldn't be the Western world if we didn't butcher everybody's culture as we used it to our...
And the reality, and I wish that I could speak the original, or I wish I could read the original
You wish you could
poems.
Speak in Turkish, Arabic,
Persian, everything. I wish I could speak all of those.
It does take away the essence of
That's exactly
what is being said.
Yeah, because, everybody in this book, I can only speak from what I've
Did he speak Farsi?
He did write some poems in Arabic, but that wasn't the primary language.
But even like Farsi, it's a very beautiful language.
It is.
But there's words in Farsi that you can't really even, when you translate them into English, it takes away the essence of the word. Even like Punjabi, like I can understand very like authentic, deep Punjabi in terms of speaking it. Like I would butcher the shit out of it. Yeah. But I can understand the word that's being said, or even like Hindi and like Urdu. There's words in there that I'm like, wow. And then to have to translate that to someone in another language, I'm like, it doesn't even scratch the surface of what this word means and the emotion that it's supposed to evoke within you, because there's no word for it in your language. Yeah. But naturally, if somebody were to read something at face value, you're not going to get the depth of what is being said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I have learned, which I'm not surprised about, but his poems are deeply spiritual, obviously, as we've been talking about, humble and humanist, and then it was all the English translations that added sexual language or removed those Islamic references, which, not surprising, disappointing. And actually, I know.
I'm gonna stop doing this.
I know. Part of the book that I read by Emily Jane Odell that I really loved is that she actually did her own translations and translated the poems word for word. So she wasn't trying to make them sound beautiful, but translated them word for word. So it's a very different kind of translation than like the Coleman Barks translation, which gained a lot of popularity in the 1970s. And like it was the 1970s that it was being translated in the Western world, and then everybody's like, whoa.
It's only been here that long?
Yeah.
Well, not long at all.
In the way that like we know Rumi today, where we're like, oh wow, he was this guy that wrote all these beautiful poems. Like it was the 70s that really kind of kick-started in the West.
I don't know anybody that follows Sufism, so it's really hard to not. I listen to Qawwali music, but that's not the same as being a Sufi. Yeah. But what's fascinating to me is this connection that you talked about, mysticism. So even Christianity, Naval Goddard talks about mysticism. Hinduism, a lot of mysticism. Eastern religions, there's mysticism. Mysticism has always been part of our roots. Controlled religion obviously would want to eliminate that because it defeats the purpose of what they're trying to do. Now, what's cool to me is every culture, every religion, every sort of this way of connecting with the divine is done through music and dancing, and either whether it's mantras or whether it's just singing, it's a way to connect to something beyond us. Mm-hmm. And it's cool because even in the yoga world, you have sound bowls, you have well, I wouldn't affiliate sound bowls to yoga, but it's used in yoga as a way to connect, right? We underestimate the impact that music and sound has on our frequency and our energy and just our physical body, that thousands of years ago, whether it was through poetry, whether it was through dancing and chanting, you're able to connect to something beyond you. Like you feel like you listen to some music, you listen to like, you know, Mozart or symphonies or any of these like Interstellar's music or whatever you're listening to, Requiem of a Dream, which is so dark. It makes you feel something deep inside of you.
Absolutely.
You can't conceptualize that emotion into words, and you'll get like goosebumps and stuff. So it's like, where's that? What is that? That's energy that's going through you. So if you're going to chant to something, you're going to dance and you're going to flow. Belly dancing is a perfect example. That's been sexualized. Yes. So fluid, and it's so elegant, and it's like the way you move your body to like, it's feminine, it's intricate, and we just sexualize the fuck out of it. You understand that this was a way for people to release energy. It was a way for people to move through their body to connect.
I think in our world now, we use our brains too much.
We do. We can't just let go.
Yeah, we overanalyze, we think, and I'm not saying we shouldn't. Obviously, that's important too, but I think time and place, I think there's a lot to be said for being able to get out of your head and get into your body. And it's beautiful practices like belly dancing, like the whirling dervishes.
What's a whirling dervish?
Let me tell you. So I'm sure you have seen pictures of whirling dervishes or videos. No? Okay, so it's I don't want to minimize it and say it's a dance. It's a practice that Sufis do that is very meditative.
Oh, yes, I have seen it. Yes.
Yeah, they have they're basically spinning in circles.
Yes, I've seen it.
Yes.
I didn't know that's what it was called.
That's a whirling dervish. So many people know that image but don't really know what it's about.
Okay.
So I learned a bit more about what it's about. But whirling itself signifies the structure of the universe. So there's the idea that all of our atoms and bits, or everything is in motion, right? Whirling. Energy, everything is moving, right? So whirling dervishes, you are showing that movement and you are showing that harmony with nature. And the practice...
That's so cool.
Right?
Yeah.
And the practice of whirling is a conscious attempt to be in harmony with nature. Different cultures have very similar ways, or not very similar.
Well, it's human.
Exactly, because it's human, 100%. So when a whirling dervish is doing what we might visually call a dance, they're revolving 360 degrees with each step, but inwardly they're also chanting the name of God.
Okay.
The whole idea, because as we've been talking about with Sufism, you're trying to connect with the essence of God and completely devote yourself to the essence of God. And in whirling, you are trying to ascend your mind and body and spirit in devotion to God. So it's a meditation in motion, which I think is so cool.
I like that.
For me, and obviously very different than whirling dervishes, like for me, when I move in a vinyasa class, that like flowiness and that, exactly, the effortlessness is a meditation in motion. And that's why I love vinyasa so much. It's not like, how many chaturangas can I do? It's like,
it's how am I moving the energy through my body?
How am I moving the energy through my body? And the stronger I feel, the more effortless it becomes, the more open my fascia is, which we'll talk about in another episode, the more fluid I'm able to be. And it's just this beautiful,
feeling. Energy also can't flow through you if you're rigid because it has nowhere to go.
Absolutely.
So you'll see people who are uptight. I don't give a fuck. It's my podcast. I can say what the fuck I want. People who are, and we've all been, okay, let me reiterate. We've all been in phases in our lives where when life is heavier, we all have a tendency to become rigid and uptight. I think that's normal. But people who live their entire life uptight and rigid, you can kind of see it. Like I would say I was in that space for like 10 years. It's a very long time. A decade is a very long time to be in that space because it's heavy. But people are in that space for 30, 40, 50. Their entire life, they're just rigid. And you can see it in the way they move. And you can see it in the way they interact with others. how is energy supposed to flow through you when you're just yeah, yeah. But how do you connect to the divine, because you're just in your head? You're just stuck on this lower vibrational survival sort of like headspace where woe is me, everything's falling apart, everything's brutal, the world is ending, and it is, but that's fine. But like, you know what I mean? So it's like, what are you going to do about it? Okay, the world, they just blew up the oil fields. What are you going to do about it? What are you sitting here on Instagram going to do about it? Right? So it's like, you have to flow with the rhythm of life. And how do you do that if you're just stuck?
And I think that's also why so many people find yoga through asana. Because people will feel, oh, I'm tight. Oh, I sit in a desk all day. I'm going to go do some yoga and get mobility. And they do. And then they're like, wow, now I feel so much better in ways I didn't even know possible. And I can think.
This opens.
The brain opens, the heart opens, everything opens. And I think it creates space to allow for curiosity and more self-discovery and discovery of God, if that's something you're interested in. Not that, you don't have to take that road in yoga, but it just gives you the space to be able to be curious, which I think is really beautiful.
I don't even think it's about God, because we've got atheists and stuff, right?
100%. No, I'm just saying, like, there's so many paths that you can take in yoga that, like, if that's your route, bhakti yoga, you can do that.
Bhakti.
Was that better?
Yes.
I try. Just tell me it's better.
It's better.
Thank you.
It's better.
Thank you. So speaking about yoga-esque practices, in terms of meditation, so Rumi, I guess to bring it back to Rumi, who this whole episode is about, and other mystics, other Sufi mystics, would go on meditation retreats. Anywhere from 40 days to 1,001 days. Don't ask me.
1,001 days.
Don't ask me the range.
That's like 4 years.
It's a long time in a meditation cell.
So you're solitarily confining.
Solitarily? Yes.
You're confining yourself for 3 years. 4 years.
Well, 40 days to
101 days is like 3.5 plus. It's like 200 days short of 4 years.
Yeah. But you don't have to do that.
Okay.
But anywhere from 40 days to, I guess, 3-ish or so years. Your choice. Okay. And that was a very important part of, the seclusion was an important part of being able to connect to God. Now, Rumi himself thought it was really important to still be a part of society. So although there is an element of asceticism and like denying yourself pleasures and luxuries in life, he thought it was really important actually to be able to be around those kinds of things, to practice being able to let go of them and practice the discipline to not engage.
Yes, because from my understanding of Sufism, if I have it right, and I'm probably butchering it, is you are going within, using mysticism and the chanting and the music and the dancing to connect to the divine, but you also have to cultivate an inner discipline. Yeah. How do you know that you've cultivated an inner discipline if you don't have triggers around you to test that you've cultivated that discipline?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. So I thought that was really interesting.
I also think that relationships around you are mirrors, not just intimate romantic relationships, but your friends, your family, coworkers, and society in general is a mirror to reflect back to you, because the triggers are the signals of where the work is still missing. Exactly. Like, I mentioned a couple episodes ago, like my mom triggers the fuck out of me. And it's because there's still work to be done in that relationship. I shouldn't be getting impatient and angry the way that I do at little things, but it's like, okay, why? So that would make perfect sense to take yourself out of it, go within, figure your shit out, and then come back and see if you can apply what you've learned in the setting that you've been put in.
And I think for most of us, I'm assuming nobody listening to this podcast is a monk.
You never know.
You never know. Would love to talk to you if you are. I think it's a really cool thing, again, to connect from somebody who lived almost 1,000 years ago to now. Like, we are very much living secular lives. We personally are interested in spirituality
the average person.
The average person may or may not be, but we are still living in a world that is like we're not all thinking the same. We're not living in
all different reality. There's infinite realities.
Infinite realities
on the planet right now.
Exactly, and like what you were saying, things around us are mirrors. They teach us about ourselves, our spirituality, if we're into that, our hearts, our desires, our values, right? So again, it's just really cool that so long ago,
the guy was doing the same thing.
The guy was doing the exact same thing that we're doing.
Yeah. He didn't have a podcast.
He didn't have a podcast. I'm sure it would have been excellent.
He would have, yeah. Depending on the people, though. Because we assume that everybody has a desire to go towards spirituality. I don't think...
assume that.
I don't think people do.
No,
but I at one point was guilty of thinking everybody wants to better themselves at one point because I wanted to better myself. So I thought everybody else also wants to better themselves.
I did think that too.
And then I realized, no, you're okay being miserable and you actually enjoy your problems because they are your identity. You enjoy being a piece of shit for the rest of your days. It's working for you apparently, right? It doesn't work for me. But I do think that it's a blessing to hit a moment in your life that brings you to your knees, that makes you want to seek more because you realize that what you're doing isn't working. Agreed. So whether that brings you to Jesus, whether that makes you open up, I don't know, a book of some kind, whether it takes you to Stoicism, whether it takes you into a yoga studio or a dance studio or a whatever the fuck you end up in. I think that I would say that there's, from what I've observed of people, being around so many people now, there's 3 different types. When rock bottom happens, one will go inward and try to seek something, spirituality, God, a better understanding so that they don't repeat this again and they can shift their reality because they're just so sick of the reality they're in. Then you've got the second camp that just, they can't cope with what's happened and they don't have the inner tools, so they break and then they go towards alcoholism or drugs or whatever your vice is as a way to run from the thing that is consuming you. Yeah. And then the third camp would be, I just live here now and this is just my identity of this one thing that happened to me and I'm a victim of everything moving forward and now all that's ever going to happen to me is bad stuff. So that's an important distinction to make, but it's fascinating that in the year 1207, he was going through the same shit.
Yes.
But
totally. And actually a fun little fact I thought of when you were just talking is that he actually references Jesus in some of his poems and Jesus' mother.
He was next door.
Because he was next door. And I think that's a really cool crossover too, because something we talk about often is that there are these crossovers that aren't necessarily, there have to be, and they're not often acknowledged or sought out.
I don't think that the world is as divisive as people want to make it out to be.
I think as humans, we love to categorize things.
Helps us understand that you're not me.
Exactly, yeah. And I think our brains kind of do that to a fault.
But that's survival though, because we come from a species that were very tribal.
Yes.
So you're not of my tribe.
Yeah. But
as modern day would have it, I don't live like that. You're not trying to conquer my village either. We can still learn from each other. I think that when it comes to spirituality and religion, there's no one thing. You can look at this as there's different tools in your toolbox to utilize to get you through the journey. And you can learn something from each of them. Sufism, music, chanting, dancing as a way to connect and also go within. It works for a lot of people. Dance is crucial for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, I would like to return to Rumi, but more specifically to what you had started to go into earlier in our podcast about ego, essentially. So I know we've talked about, with Sufism, the desire to connect to the essence of God, connect to your teacher, et cetera, et cetera. But an idea that I want to point out is that you're trying to liberate, or a Sufi is trying to liberate themselves from themselves. Okay. And they are trying to destroy the idea of the self. So there's an idea or a desire to annihilate your ego, to destroy the self, and that non-existence is the highest level. And that struggle against the self is one of the hardest struggles that you will encounter. And to me, as I was learning this, I'm like, oh, it's like yoga, where you're going for samadhi.
Samadhi. Yeah, you got it.
Yes, that was successful. But it's a very, I try every time.
But you're doing so good.
Thank you so much. But again, it's a parallel, like what we were literally just talking about. It's a parallel idea where you are trying to disconnect from all of the noise that's going on around you, right? And I mean, in yoga is not a religion. So that's where I would say the biggest difference is, because yoga, you're achieving enlightenment, you're escaping the cycle of life and death. As a yogi, you ascend that, you take the sun path. Whereas with this, you are actually annihilating the self to become closer to God. And there is...
So is a religion.
Sufism is a religion.
That believes in Allah?
Yes. Yeah, because it's Muslim.
It's like a subsect?
Yeah. I don't know if that's the right term, but I think...
I don't want to be wrong.
I don't want to be wrong.
I'm almost trying to think about how would it be similar to the way yoga often gets associated with Hinduism, even though they're two separate things.
I don't think so, because, so here's how I think of it. Rumi practiced Islam.
Right, and yoga existed before Hinduism.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think too with yoga, culturally, a lot of Hinduism has come into yoga. Even though, like when I went to India, my yoga school was definitely in a Hindu area. There's a lot of pujas that involved Hinduism.
Here's the thing, right? And I'm sure we could do a deep dive into this one day. When you really go into yoga, you really talk about the yoga component. I know we're going off what you're talking about the concept of the masculine and the feminine. Yep. And they're supposed to intertwine together and balance together to be one with creation. Yeah. So you've got Shiv, which is a Hindu god, but is also known as the destroyer, who marries his wife, which was Parvati, but she's the feminine, and she's like the divine feminine, and it's like the dance between the two. You've got these gods and goddesses that kind of, you go back into like the Upanishads, the Vedas, and all. It's like all of this is in scripture. Yeah. So naturally, it's easy to blur the lines between all of this and pray to these deities and pray to these gods. But the concept of yoga is just about the union between you and the universe.
What does the universe mean to you? Is the universe source? Is it God?
Or is it just the ether?
Exactly. And I think that's a very personal question that only you as a practitioner can answer. And I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer to that.
No, I think it just gets dictated by what your individual path is.
Exactly.
But that's why I have an issue with religion, because it assumes that because we're all following this one thing, we're all on the same path, and we all have this unified purpose. But that's not real, because I'm an individual with my own needs and my own karmas and my own lessons and my own shit that I need to work through. It's not going to be the same as what Kristina's doing.
Yeah.
So if we were both sitting here following Christianity, it's going to look very different. 100%. Yeah. But then should I be ostracized now for how I choose to follow the book versus how you follow the book? And who's right?
And I think this is why in our modern time, a lot of people turn to more spirituality as opposed to religion, because spirituality almost gives you that creative control over how it is that you want to express what it is that you believe.
I don't want to take away from Rumi, but I'll save this for another episode. But I think that New Age spirituality and spirituality as a whole is seen as a cult because of who it's attracted and what they've done with it and the way they've capitalized on something that is actually supposed to be very sacred. Yeah. Like all things. Yeah. We live in a very capitalistic world, and I personally know people fucking shit on capitalism. I'm pro-capitalism, unfortunately, because I need money to pay my bills. So, and I like expensive things. Okay. So I need the money. You might not, but other people's money is great until you run out of other people's money. Anyway, but we've capitalized on these things that are sacred, and we haven't drawn a line in the sand for what should remain untouchable. Right? So spirituality now has kind of blended into this.
Oh, yeah. And I purposefully said spirituality because I do think spirituality is so broad. But like you said, there's the New Age stuff. There's, those of us who have grown up in Christian churches and now experience spirituality and God in a very different way. There's those who are
found a tarot reader.
There's those who continue to go to church. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different brands, and there's no
one size fits all.
One size fits all, and I think that's really important.
I liked what we talked about.
I liked it. I hope that you and everybody who's listening / watching has a better understanding now as to who this person was that we keep seeing quoted all the time. So with all of the information now in your minds, collectively, I want to reread that poem one more time. Because it will read differently. Okay. Unless Mandy makes me laugh the entire time.
I will not.
That's what I think is so beautiful about Rumi's poetry. It is that it is so full of this passion and love and devotion that is not a romantic love. And I'm not saying romantic love is bad. I'm married. I'm very happily married. Right. But this is a very different kind of love.
I would love to have a romantic love that is exactly on par with that love to the divine.
100%.
Like, can you imagine having that level of devotion to your partner, and then together the two of you have that devotion to the divine? Yeah. Like, your life would just be elevated on a whole other level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Me with your poem.
Let me read it one more time. So with everything we know now, we know that God is the beloved. I don't think there's any alcohol in this one. We know that any kind of reference you ever read about alcohol in Rumi poems is
about the intoxication that you get from the high that you get from being so devoted.
Exactly. Okay. We know that friends are mystics. We know that really this is all about God. So, the poem, Arouse Passion. O God, let all lovers be content, give them happy endings, let their lives be celebrations, let their hearts dance in the fire of your love. My sweetheart, you have aroused my passion. Your touch has filled me with desire. I am no longer separate from you. These are precious moments. I beseech you, don't let me wait. Let me merge with you. He is asking to become one with God and have that, I guess, the ego death that we were talking about, annihilation of self. Yeah. So very different kind of meaning than I think the average person in the West would initially think this was about.
Mystics are friends, so they're on the same frequency as you.
No, because I think in the context of the poems, if you read it, it's like addressing other people in the context, like they're friends, they're mystics, other people in the same quest as Rumi is to find connection with God. That's my understanding, because I do not take it to mean like, oh, you're not a mystic, you're not my friend. It's not exclusionary.
Okay, so it's more so we're all, those of us who are mystics are on the same path to find this devotion to the divine.
And you as a mystic understand the heartache to not be one with the divine.
Not being one with the divine means that I still got work to do. And then I go on my 40-day meditation retreat.
Or perhaps 1001.
1001.
In your meditation cell.
My Vipassana.
A long Vipassana.
Imagine 40 days of Vipassana.
You would eat. You have to.
The retreat.
It's not like an
Instagram retreat. It's not let's go to Tulum. That was very insightful.
I'm glad you enjoyed.
Thank you.
I hope everybody listening also enjoyed. This kind of all, I forgot to mention, this kind of all came up for me when I was looking for readings for my wedding. because Rumi quotes kept coming up, and I was like, oh, I have this book about Rumi, so then I started reading it, like I mentioned, and then I was like, oh, I'm missing something here, and then I realized, I'm like, oh my God, I can't use the quote for my wedding because...
Not devoted to my husband the way he is to God.
Well, yeah, it's just a very different context and meaning, and
Different type of... Yeah. And how lucky to be able to feel that. Like, there's people that can't resonate with what he's saying.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they can't conceptualize that you could feel that emotion towards something.
Yeah.
But how blessed are you to feel so much depth to creation?
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful.
I think so too. Yeah. Well, if you found value and insight in this episode, or you really liked what we talked about and you think somebody else could find some value from it, please like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you on the next one.
Thanks for being here.
Bye.